Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
In the house behind, the life you find is something understood. So there's love, those vital days.
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means.
We are not alone. Water over stone, even if you're by yourself.
And today's music, created fresh by Rick Cleffel this morning, is called The Dream Mirror. Today we'll be talking about dreams as sacred portals and how they unlock the path to spiritual awakening. Our guest is Megan Mary, author of the award-winning metaphysical series The Witches of Maple Hollow. Megan Mary is also a podcaster and a dream coach. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. Last call to join the fun. This year's IASD conference is June 21 to 25, starting a week from today, and it's totally online, so you can join even up until the last minute. I'll be teaching about my treasure hunt approach to dream work, and we'll have keynotes, receptions, sideball, lots of experiential workshops where you get to try out different ways of working with dreams, including offering by my guest today about dream portals. We'll be capped off with a fabulous dream ball, so start thinking about which of your dream characters you'd like to dress up as now. No flights, just insights. Register now and you can be part of the fun. Click asdreams.org and then click on the link that says register now. I hope to see you there. Now on to our guest, Miss Megan Mary. Hello, please say hi.
Hi, Catherine. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. So good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like you to introduce yourself. Please say hello to our guest, Megan Mary.
Yes, hello. And Catherine gave me such a wonderful introduction already.
Oh.
But yes, as she said, I am an international best-selling metaphysical author and founder of Inner Realms Publishing, dream worker, and host of the Women's Dream Enlightenment podcast.
Wonderful. Okay, so also I want to let our listeners know that you can find our guest at meganmary.com, MEGAN, meganmary.com, and lots of places on social media, Instagram, YouTube, X, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, Threads, all at Megan Mary Author, and then also LinkedIn at Megan Mary, Blue Sky at meganmary.com, and Amazon Author at Megan Mary. So you really got your bases covered.
Yes.
That's good. And your 3 books are called The Dream Haunters, The Dream Mirrors, and The Dream Dimensions, and I had the honor of writing a blurb for The Dream Mirrors, which was a really fascinating story about an encounter with the dream world that came that kind of made the transition to waking life. And let's just jump right to portals. What are portals? They figured quite a bit in the dream mirrors, and that's what you're talking to ISD is going to be about. What is a dream portal?
Yes. So the talk that I'm going to be giving at IASD is that dreams are sacred portals and a way to unlock the path to spiritual awakening. And I really see dreams as a doorway, if you will, to other realms where we can access universal and higher wisdom that is innate within ourselves, but that is often cloaked by the 3D reality and the illusory nature of our existence on Earth. And so it's really a discussion about the portal capability and potential of dreams. And that by tuning into them and listening to their messages and engaging different practices to gain a deeper understanding of their significance, that we really can merge with the other aspects of self that transcend the time and space of this reality.
Well, that's maybe you can give an example, because that's a very kind of complex description, and I'm sure it's quite accurate. But can you also give us an example to picture, like, what is a dream portal? Is it something I could be looking for in my dreams? And maybe you could share one of yours or one of your book characters or something. What is an example of a portal?
Yes, I think it's very metaphorical in nature. It could, of course, be a actual door, but it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. So it could just be an experience that you're having, and that could be through visitation dreams of past loved ones. It could be spirit guide encounters where you are meeting animals or people or beings that are bringing you information or showing you things. And it can also be the symbolic experiences that take place in our dreams that, because they're so layered with metaphor, in their literal interpretation, we might think, well, this is nonsensical or this doesn't bear a meaning, but that there is a much more deeper significance to them. And so by working with them and engaging in that activity, we actually metaphorically cross over into that portal.
So how does one recognize that this experience is a portal, number one, and then number two, how does one work with it?
Yes, so I have my own method that I devised, which is actually the same name as book 2, which is the Dream Mirrors. And so I devised something called the Dream Mirror Method to decode your dreams. But in the course of the narrative, there is a lot of reflection upon that method. The main character is exposed to and learns and starts practicing that method. And her dreams are very much a constant undercurrent in the trilogy that lead her towards a greater understanding about her abilities and her legacy.
Okay, so do you want to say a little bit about what that actually the method is?
Yes, so it's the Dream Mirror Method, which is basically 4 steps to give you a deeper insight into your dreams. So the first step is memory, and that's really just where you start the practice of remembering your dreams, because not everybody is there. A lot of people think they're not dreaming when they are, and they're not paying attention to them or giving them credence. And so that first step is really just beginning the observation and the dedication to the practice of recording your dreams. And when you do that, you can also title your dream as a story, because a lot of times dreams do present themselves as stories.
Right.
In the second step, we look at the mood that you're experiencing in the dream. So the mood perhaps that you went to sleep with, the mood that you experienced in the dream, which there could be many, more than one, and then the mood that you woke up in. And that really can give us a lot more insight into the emotional underpinnings of the story. And let us see what's driving that from an emotional standpoint. The third step is what I call mirror, and that's really where the dream becomes the mirror of your subconscious. And it is all of the different details, the people, the places, the actions, the situations, the numbers, the colors, the weather, all of those things get fleshed out in quite a lot of detail in that stage, where we're looking at the 1,000-foot view, but also the really minute, detailed point of view. And then we are really looking at how that is a reflection of your existence in this plane, as well as others.
Right.
And so that fourth stage is metaphor or message. And so it can go either way. It can be that the dream and the story is a metaphor for your waking life, and that it can present opportunities, present solutions, show you challenges that you're encountering and how you can grow from them. But it can also be a stage where you can receive messages. And those messages can be basically encodings, wisdom, downloads, whatever you want to call them, from the universal knowledge that we are all a part of and that we all originate from. And that can come in the form of a spirit guide or a loved one who's passed on, or even people that you've never known. And so that stage is where we look at all of the things that came up in the mirror stage and combine it with that mood that you're experiencing to see, okay, what is the message here, or what is the metaphor here?
Okay, right. So maybe you could give us an example of how either you have worked with this process, like how is this helpful, or maybe how one of the characters in your books has worked with this process, just to kind of make it concrete and bring a dream into the room. I love to have a dream here on the Dream Journal.
Sure. Yeah. So I'd love to read you the first dream that appears in the first book of the Dream Haunters. The book has 13 dreams, 31 chapters, because it takes place at Halloween. And the very first dream is one of the recurring dreams that the main character, Hannah, regularly has had all of her life, and she doesn't know what it means. And so it really sets the stage for the rest of the story that's about to unfold. So I'll read you that now.
Okay.
A silvered crescent moon glowed in the sky. A narrow cloud crawled through the middle. In the distance, ravens and crows cawed, and in the rustle of leaves crumbling in the wind filled her ears. The air was dank with fog, and the ground was moist. Hannah's feet, bare and cool, made impressions in the mud and grass as she walked. Thick vines gathered around her ankles, intertwined and covering the ground like dense seaweed at the bottom of a dark sea. The vines were never-ending, it seemed, running deep within the soil and tangling onto each other on all sides. They were sturdy, bright green, coursing with life, and shaded with enormous ruffled leaves that jutted out from their stems to rise above the green, furry pipelines. Yellow flowers, yet to blossom, peeked out from barely opened sprouts, and long, wheat-like fronds with pollen-filled seedlings wrapped and knotted themselves among the vines and leaves. Magnificent pumpkins rose between the vines. They were gigantic, enormously round, brilliantly orange, and adorned with shadowy rivets and indentations from top to bottom on all sides. Each was crowned with a fantastic stem connecting it to the pipeline of pulsating life force. There were pumpkins of nearly every color, some orange, some peach, some white, some yellow, some that were bumpy orange with green flecks. The fog, thick and wide, gently nestled itself among the pumpkins. The green vines were teeming with energy. They began to pulsate and move like snakes, wrapping around her ankles first, then crawling up her legs. As they quickly wrapped, she felt grounded, supported, connected. A buzz encircled her body, waves of electric vibration bounding through her. It was a network. A pumpkin patch neural network. She was part of it, and it was part of her. It was alive, and she felt its life force running through her. She did not hesitate or attempt to detach herself. She felt invigorated and infused with an energy greater than herself. It made her feel supercharged, powerful, and enchanted. Hannah woke up with a start, catching her breath, her legs still shimmering from the vibration. She'd had this dream before. In fact, this was a recurring dream that she'd had since childhood. She still couldn't figure out what it meant. It haunted her like a shadow following her in a dark street. But it also had begun to feel comforting, like an old song.
Beautiful. The imagery is very, very rich, Megan.
Thank you.
And so the pumpkin patch is a kind of a living organism or some kind of a network.
Yes.
Which is kind of exciting, but also kind of scary. Right?
Yeah, it's a little bit, you don't know, right? You don't know exactly what it's capable of, but it's also her connection to the earth.
Right.
And it's also her energetic connection to her own power that she's not aware of yet.
Right. And as she allows herself to stand there and be grounded by that electricity. And like we were talking about the idea of dreams as mirror, and because this is a recurring dream of hers, it has something to do with her, like in something that she doesn't know yet. Like you say she doesn't know about her power yet.
Yes. And so those yellow flowers yet to blossom are also metaphorical of her awakening that's about to happen and what she's about to discover and what leads her to travel to Maple Hollow, which is the island of eternal autumn.
Right. And she has some ancestral connections there, right? She has family.
Yes. Yes, long-lost aunt that, she received a cryptic letter from who's suddenly disappeared. So she travels there to investigate and finds out that Sky Manor is known for its pumpkin patches, coincidentally.
Okay. But yet not just any pumpkin patch. The connection here comes up for me of a portal. Like that, this patch itself seems like a way to go deeper into herself or to transcend reality in a certain way.
It very much is. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that brings us back to portals and spirituality and the metaphysics.
Yeah, absolutely. And she, as the trilogy progresses, she discovers that there's actually more than one portal.
Right. Right. Well, it seems it would be unlikely if there were only one door into.
Right.
So tell me about this. What is it a portal to? Like, what is your? What do you want to say about these portals? Like, what are they opening to?
Well, I think that in my case and in the case of the trilogy, it was really about spiritual, you can call it awakening or remembering. A lot of people call it remembering because it's a reconnection to an internal wisdom that you always, what people call an internal knowing, what you always felt you knew to be true, but you didn't know why you knew it.
Yeah.
And when you start to experience Kundalini awakening or spiritual awareness or ascension symptoms, all of those types of things, synchronicities start happening. You start receiving visions, things that you can't explain that are very otherworldly start happening. And that is really what happens as you discover the portals. They are not only access to other realms, but they lead you back to yourself. Those other realms are within you, which is why I called my publishing company Inner Realms, because it really is all within us.
Yeah.
And it's very much a parable about not looking outside yourself and realizing that you are one part of the whole and that you already have all the answers that you seek.
Right. Okay. That's very empowering.
Yes.
Right.
And
so often we're looking outside of ourselves for answers.
Correct. And I very much always talk about what I call dream empowerment, because I really believe that dreams have the ability to empower us in such a profound way when we actually appreciate them and start listening.
Right. I've certainly, if you're preaching to the converted here, that's been my
Yes.
experience as well, for sure. So tell me about visitation dreams. Now, you're talking about like opening up to our inner wisdom and the power within us. And yet visitation dreams are typically, my usual understanding of that is that it's the visiting of a spirit of someone who has passed. So it's sort of by definition outside of ourselves, something like letting in the spirit or soul of another person.
It is, but it is experienced on a multidimensional plane.
Okay.
So when we are experiencing that, and that was one of I had many dreams when I was growing up, but one of the more powerful things that happened to me when I was younger was that my father passed away suddenly, and I had a visitation dream of him 3 days after. And it was very different from the story dreams. And it was very obvious that it was him and that he was coming to say his goodbyes. And it was very much in a way, I think, us meeting on a different plane. So when we dream and when we're sleeping, I really feel that part of the functional reason that our bodies require sleep is so that we can spiritually revisit the dream world, whatever world that is that we're calling the dream world, because it is a requirement for our existence here, that we can't endure the separation entirely, so that we need to spend an equal or comparable amount of time in this other space returning to our spirit self, because I truly believe that we are spirits first and humans second. And when we sleep and we dream, we return to that spirit state. And of course, anyone who has passed on has just simply returned to that spirit state as well. And so when we are back in that spirit state because we are dreaming, that is where we can meet. And it's a testament to the multidimensionality of what we are comprised of. I don't want to overuse the word our existence, but it's essentially awakening to that truth that we are more than just our physical dimension, and that there is more to all of that we conceive of outside of the constraints of time and space. And that's really what the trilogy speaks to as well, that our physical self is an illusion and that time and space are just constraints and illusions, and the dream world isn't confined by those constraints.
Right. And so this, what we're talking about is internal wisdom becomes a much broader thing, in that is that if during the dream state that we have access to these other realms that is still inside of us, and yet we're accessing things that are larger than we are as well, sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that brings me then to the idea of spirit guides.
Yes.
What do you have to say about spirit guides?
Yes, so there were so many different spirit guides that appeared to me in the course of writing this book, and all got put in the book as a result of that. The first, of course, being the adorable talking cat, Bixby. And he was I wouldn't say very first, but he was the first guide that came to me that brought the book, really. And so he came to me in a dream in 2014, and he had a lisp. He was just a totally full character. And I thought, okay, I have to put this into something. And at the time, I wasn't planning on writing a book at all, but it was so powerful that I knew I had to write it down. And then when I picked it up 9 years later, I started to, 8 or 9 years later, I started to do a lot of spiritual work. And then I started to meet a lot of other spirit guides. So the owls in book 2 were experiences that I personally had. with the different owls in the dreams, and Leaf, the other character. A lot of the spirit guides in the book are actually the guides that appeared to me in my dreams.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of my questions, had to do with how much of your personal dreams were inspired these books that you've been writing.
Yeah,
It sounds
quite a
like
bit.
quite a few, exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So we have all these different characters that can communicate with us kind of across or through the portal. You know, the deceased loved ones. We have spirit guides. We have our inner, our higher self. And then there's just the overall metaphor of things, like in the pumpkin patch, where the network of pumpkins is kind of, for me, is pointing to the interconnectedness of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. So I have one more question for you before we go to our break, which has to do with sound therapy. What is sound therapy, and how does it connect to dream work?
Yes. So one of the unique things that I do in my practice is that I combine sound healing and dream work. So consider it frequency dream work, if you will. And so when I work with clients, if they choose to incorporate this modality, what I do is I allow them the opportunity to choose a dream that they want to work on. And then I create a self-guided meditation that walks them through their dream with the alternate ending that they have chosen, that's empowering for them. And I overlay curated solfeggio sound frequencies onto that track, because each one has a specific healing ability. And so depending on what it is they're trying to achieve and the type of dream that they're working with, I will choose a hertz frequency that I feel when they listen to it with the suggestion of the dream that the ending that they desire for their dream. When you combine those two things together, it becomes a very powerful practice and meditation for them to listen to, which feeds that suggestion to the subconscious while also receiving the vibrational medicine that all the other layers of our outside of our body need to receive, the auric layer, all the other layers. And so the sound healing, just the way the sound healing works in itself, it's combining the modality of sound healing with the modality of dream work.
So is it a single tone then, or different tones, but one at a time, or what kind of sound?
It depends on what the track is that I choose. At this stage, I'm not necessarily creating the sounds myself with singing bowls or things like that. So it would be a track that could have it overlaid with other sounds, so that it's pleasing, so that it's relaxing, and it's basically layering that with the sound of my voice leading you through that dream and giving you the chance to just receive, because one of the great things about sound healing is you don't have to effort with sound healing. You just receive. You're just within the vicinity of that in your water-filled existence, right? Where it very much the way sound affects water in a puddle. We are very much affected by sound, whether we can see it or not. And so it's a very beautiful and gentle healing modality that lends itself very well to the dream work, I found.
I love that. Well, you know, it reminds me a bit of our background music we have playing all the time here during the Dream Journal, which is, it's so to low level, it's almost like subliminal, and yet I find it incredibly grounding and soothing, and it kind of reminds me to go slow, and it's very helpful, and I hope my listeners enjoy it too. So powerful stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Megan, Mary, thank you. This is wonderful. We are gotten to our break, but we still have much more to come. We're going to talk some more about portals. I still have questions about portals, and we're going to open up, of course, to callers as well. And I'd love to also we'll see what we have time for. But we have a lot more show to come. And I want to let you all know that our guest today is Megan Mary, and you can get to her at meganmary.com. She has 3 books in the Witches of Maple Hollow series. And, we're talking about portals and visitation dreams and sound therapy and all kinds of spiritual practices. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. And of course, we're podcast everywhere. We will be right back. You are listening to The Dream Journal. My name is Catherine Bell of Experiential Dream Work. I'd like to send out a special welcome to our far-flung listeners. We've got some local folks: San Jose, Santa Cruz, Marina, San Francisco, Fresno, and then Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And then we have 2 Canadian listeners: Kitchener, Ontario, and Beauharnois in Quebec. Welcome to The Dream Journal. You know, people really all over the world are interested in their dreams. After all, everybody does dream, even if you don't remember them. If you want to nudge the algorithm to help spread interest in dreaming, please follow The Dream Journal on your favorite podcast app. And if you're inspired, leave us a rating, a review. It really helps. And most importantly, though, I would love to have you share the information about The Dream Journal with your friends, because the mission of the show is to get folks talking about dreaming. And that's one way to get in touch with people, is to tell them about the podcast. But really just to get people talking about dreaming, I think, is really important. It's going to lift us up. Their dreams are already doing their work behind the scenes, but let's bring it out into the open. You can go to Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows and pod drops by following hashtag The Dream Journal and at Experiential Dreamwork. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can see pod drops there. So please also contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about a new book or to let folks know about your dream-related offerings. I do shows pretty much every week, so I'm always looking for guests. So feel free to get in touch with me. So we had told you about that big international IASD conference, which is happening next week. You can find out about that. I'm going to remind you about the webpage, asdreams.org. But also please mark your calendar for a local in-person event at the beautiful Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. The Festival of Dreams is going to be happening on October 10th through 12th in downtown Santa Cruz. So let me know if you want to get on the list to find out more about it. You can also look us up on Facebook. And check out the links on my social media to find out about the festival. Festivalofdreams.net is our webpage. Today's guest is Megan Mary, and we're talking about her series of books all about dream portals and dream empowerment. And we have a caller on the line. So we have Ellen from SoCal. How are you doing, Ellen?
I'm doing fine, Catherine. Nice to hear your voice. Always good to hear your program.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for being a listener, Ellen. It's good to see you. Good to hear you. And I do sometimes see you around town. It's good to have you calling in.
So I wanted to share a dream that actually, it's so funny. Like sometimes I wake up purposely so I can listen to your show. And I woke up and I had this very clear dream that was like, and then I remember listening to your show, and there was never a moment for me to call in that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote it down.
Good. It's good to have a dream journal because those dreams will disappear if you don't write them
down.
down.
Now I'm looking for it. I wrote it on a piece of paper.
Uh-oh.
Whatever. The point is, I know it in my head. So okay. I'm just I wanted to read it, what I wrote, because it's more like so fresh. But the dream basically was that I was in this huge, like you're talking about a retreat or whatever you want. What do you call it? Workshop?
Yeah, workshop, conference.
Workshop. Well, it was like I was supposed to be a presenter. There were just people everywhere, and it was like this old medieval building. I remember these columns, and people were in the balcony, and they were down below. And all of a sudden, I was supposed to go on and teach a writing workshop.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like a wannabe writer, right? And I really started a memoir and then put it down and then procrastinating and I remember once when I worked at the Writing Center at Cabrillo, and there was a thing on the wall, and I looked at it all the time, and it says, like you can't be a writer if you're not writing. Like it more or less that was the jinx of it all, right?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm a writer, right? You can't be a writer if you're not writing. and I just remember this anxiety, like, oh my God, I looked around at all the people, and I thought, what am I going to do? I don't have anything prepared. I don't know what to say. And I was sharing this with somebody else, and I can't remember. Like, I think I woke up then, like what that person, like what their suggestion was. I wish I could find where I wrote it down, but I'm sorry.
Well, there's some potent moments there. I think there's some powerful feelings. And Megan, I wonder if you have any comments about the dream or questions, or how would you explore this dream? How would you suggest Ellen take a look
And
at
I
this?
just want to say I rarely have dreams that are like quote unquote anxiety dreams. This
Okay.
is very unusual for me.
Okay, right.
Okay, well, welcome to the show. Thank you for sharing your dream. I think the first thing I would ask is, if you were to give that dream a title, what would you call it?
What would I call it? I would call it Not Being Prepared.
Okay. And I want to talk about the setting, because I was intrigued when you said, I think you said medieval castle, or at least that's what I saw.
Well, it was like this it was this old-fashioned kind of, I would think you would find a building like that in Italy or something. It just was really bizarre, because I've never had a dream with such a setting.
Yeah. And the first question would be, have you been to a place like that? And if not, what is your resonant with that type of place? Do you feel that this is a place maybe that inspires awe in you, for example, or what does a place like that make you think of?
I know. It was a very unusual setting for me, and I would say, if anything, it gives me the sense of historical. So it's very kind of old school. You don't find places like that a lot in our country, in the U.S.
That's true.
And also, you could say, because I think it was to make me, I must be overwhelmed by something. Because it was just like people at the balconies and people down below, and there were more than one room. There was like more people everywhere. They're waiting for me to give a talk. I was like stunned, like, what?
And when you woke up,
writing, and I'm such a wannabe writer, and I am a writer. I used to keep a journal forever when I started at 17, and I only stopped when I had my second child because I was like overwhelmed and couldn't anymore. And I still do, but now I don't do it as consistently. And I found that even when I kept a journal, that maybe half or two-thirds of my journal were dreams. I was always recording dreams. So I don't know. Yeah, this feeling, maybe just me feeling overwhelmed, or feeling like, I'm supposed to be doing something and I'm not, because I know I feel that way a lot about my writing.
Okay. And when you woke up, what was the emotional vibration at that point?
It was just like, wow, peculiar.
Okay.
I wasn't feeling anxiety, or it just was so and I just remember turning to someone like, what? Like, I'm supposed to present? Like, I guess not even realizing that was kind of strange, that I didn't know ahead of time. So then you asked me what would I title it. That's what I'm feeling, like not being prepared. Because that was most of it. Like, well, if I only realized ahead of time, And now all these people.
So what do you? Is there something? And you've already touched on it a bit. That situation, right? The crux of the story really is that something is being expected of you, and that a lot of people are waiting to see this, and that you're not aware that they are, right? And I've heard you say more than once that that you're a wannabe writer, although you say that you've worked at a writing center and you've written, and so clearly you are already embodying the writer, but there's part of yourself that still thinks that it's wannabe.
Right. And the thing was that there I was supposedly the expert, like people were waiting to hear from me. And so I was a little overwhelmed, like, wait a minute, I'm not the expert. Why are they expecting me to be giving a workshop on writing? And then but I also am a teacher, and I also teach young kids how to write. And I think I'm a really good teacher of how to, getting young kids to learn about the writing process.
Wow, you do a lot with writing.
Yeah. So I think perhaps that you waking up not carrying the anxiety over is very indicative of your observation frame point versus carrying that anxiety over, waking up feeling that anxiety, that dream hangover, which a lot of people have. And so the fact that you observed it and thought, how interesting, but that also in the dream you recognize that all of these people were there to glean information from you, to observe what you had to offer, and that maybe you were just unaware of that. And so it does really speak to the fact that you actually are a writer already, and that imposter syndrome is, perhaps preventing you from really taking that stage, and that all these other people are actually already viewing you as that writer, and that you are already on the stage. You're just not aware that you are.
Oh my gosh! And the most important thing you just said were these two words: that imposter syndrome. If I was to give it that title, that dream, another title, it would be that. Yeah. Like not being prepared, but that feeling of like feeling like the imposter. Why are they expecting me to teach them about writing?
Wow.
Yes.
Megan, thank you. That seems like a big aha.
On the other hand, I have shared with people like why I feel this, important motivation to write this. At least now I've realized I want to write a series of memoirs, but why the first one? And people always tell me, there are people I've heard now for the last year or two, like, I'm waiting for you to finish that book. I want to read it.
There we go.
So I have all this audience waiting, and I'm not doing it.
And there's a saying that when you feel driven to write something, it is because your audience is hoping that produces itself out in the world, and that you are simply the conduit for what they are already wishing and hoping and waiting for.
Wow.
Well, I guess there is a few reasons why I delayed. I should be out at a big No Kings protest this morning, and there were just for personal reasons that I've been delaying or whatever, not getting out there. And this was like, now suddenly I went like, wow, that's why I had to call in about this dream, because this is very helpful for me.
I'm so glad you called, Ellen. Wow.
And it's just really motivating. I mean, that dream should have been motivating, but talking to you is now like, oh yeah, man, I got to do this. I got to get down and, I got summer now, so I should be writing. I take a retreat and write.
Well, if you're still writing in your dream journal, right? You do writing dreams?
Yeah, I mean, I write down.
You're writing?
I don't always do it. I always review if I have any dream in my head. Yep. And like that one was so different and specific that I did write it down.
Thank you for calling, Ellen. This is really, really helpful.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was helpful for me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. All right. Well, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Yeah. Okay. That's fabulous. There is something about that imposter syndrome. We think we don't know how to do what we're already doing it so often.
Exactly. And it comes with the territory with all writers, I think. But
right. You have a lot to say about writing, I'm sure, and listeners know I'm working on a book as well. But I see you sent me a text that you have somebody who asked you a question, who sent me a question. Would you like to?
Yes.
Yes. Would you like to address this question here?
Yes. So one of the people in my community actually sent in a question, And that was that she wanted to know what it means when you dream of being successful and you are still struggling. And that, of course, is a very summarized short summary of what's happening in the dream. So we don't have all the details to go on. But in a spiritual sense, the first thing that comes to mind for me is to understand that that time and space are illusions, and that our illusion of I am here and I want to get there is really part and parcel of this environment that we're used to. But that when we look at the quantum space and we look at the interdimensionality of our existence, we realize that there are multiple timelines with which we can exist. And that there are timelines where we are the pinnacle of that success that we are envisioning. And that it is not something that we have to necessarily struggle to attain, that we are already living that successful life in another timeline, which we can quantum leap to by recognizing the vibration that we are existing in. And so that's the really exciting part about dreams, is that it shows us our potential and it connects us to the universal self. The universal self is not just this avatar, this voice, this body, this name that we've come to identify with. The universal self is all of the people and names and bodies that we may have been, will be, and all of the, the quantum that we go back to. And so it is all possible, and it is all happening at once. And that is where quantum physics blends really nicely with dream theory. And so to understand that dream, you have to understand those concepts. And then you recognize that it's actually not out of reach, that it's actually something that you can quantum leap and embody in this existence by doing the work.
Right.
And I don't mean the work to get there. I mean the work on the spirit.
The inner work. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm really struck by this. These both Ellen's question and this email that you got or text or whatever it was, that they're both about imposter syndrome.
Yes.
We have some interesting synchronicity here. It like makes me think of okay, if I've seen it a couple of times, it probably applies to me. And like, is it time to get my book out there?
Yes, of course it is.
Of course it is. It always is.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole idea of the imposter syndrome, that this is kind of a synchronicity, that I've succeeded, I'm finished, and yet I'm still struggling. Like in the words of your email question, you're still struggling. I still don't feel worthy, or in Ellen's dream, I still feel like I have nothing to say. And yet, I bet if you asked Ellen about writing, she has a lot of experience with writing, and she's teaches, and she would have a lot to say, even off the cuff, without preparing. And yet, in the moment of like, I have nothing to say, I have not prepared, and yet there is so much that we already do know.
Yes, and it is by no synchronicity that I am going to speak in an hour for a panel I am not prepared for. So it is also a message to me. Yes.
Okay. Well, that sounds amazing. That's a great series of synchronicities right there. So, Megan Mary, well, this has been a great conversation, and I'm wondering, do you have anything else you want to share with our listeners? Any about your program offerings, where to find your books? What would you like to?
Yes, absolutely. So as Catherine had mentioned earlier, you can find me at meganmary.com, and there you will be able to purchase the books directly from me, signed copies. I also will have all 3 books in audiobook. Book 3, The Dream Dimensions, is coming out in October. You can pre-order it now. And book 1 and 2 are available on my site. They're also available at retailers worldwide, and you can request them at your local library and your local independent bookstore. On my website, you can also find my Women's Guide to Dream Decoding course, and I also offer one-to-one dream sessions for women. And you can find my podcast, Women's Dream Enlightenment, where I discuss dreams, deep discussions, and stories of spiritual awakening with other women.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, meganmary.com. And what about any final thoughts or encouragements for our listeners?
Yes, let's see. I'm going to use a quote from the Dream Haunters, and that is, sometimes we stand in our brightness, sometimes we sit in our darkness, but at all times we must balance both sides of ourselves.
Wonderful. Megan Mary, it is a pleasure to be chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to sharing the IASD conference with you next week. Be sure to let's chat. We have this networking opportunity here, and let's chat.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to it so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. My name is Catherine Bell, and you can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org. That's KATHERINE @ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and I'll look forward to chatting with you there. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer and music creator, audio editing by Sukli Wessling, and phones by Tony Russamano. The intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
Know that you might be the target. Know you're an upscale market. You know they've been tracking you from day one. Beware of the face that's familiar. It might be the face of your killer. Most people are shot by someone they know. There's a dot on you. There's a dot on you. You know that it's true. Care if you're through. There's a dot on you.